teacher vacancies are apparently at an all-time high. That's according to the National Foundation for Educational Research.
Well, with record shortages, the British education system hemorrhaging staff and the size of classes ever increasing, this morning we are asking, should we recruit more teachers from overseas?
Well, we can talk to former head teacher and chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern, and political commentator Conor Tomlinson. I mean, Conor, if our children are effectively struggling, being punished by the fact we haven't got enough teachers and class sizes are increasing, surely this is a sensible temporary option.
Well, morning. Problem there is it's often not temporary. I mean, it's far from me to agree with the Prime Minister, but I do remember him saying that he wants to end the one nation experiment and open borders and train British homegrown talent. And there's two reasons for that. One is, let's say, economic and skills based, and the other is cultural. Let's use the NHS as an example for this. When we've recruited large amounts of foreign workers, especially after 2021, on behalf of the NHS, we've seen, according to The Guardian, industrial-scale qualifications fraud by a large number of Nigerian and Indian doctors and nurses, and we've seen a higher rate of medical malpractice. And we've also seen, in a study that Miriam Cates did of health and social care visas from 2023, of 70,000 issued, only 11,000 stayed in the profession. And that just shows that the standards in those countries are not as good as the standards of our own homegrown talent. Now, if that's for some of the most vulnerable, the sick and the elderly, we also don't want to subject children to those standards in that way. And of course, it's not just temporary, because after 5 years, if you come here, you get indefinite leave to remain. So you get access to the full spectrum of welfare benefits. You're allowed to access British citizenship. And often these low-wage workers, which unfortunately the teaching profession is. It's a low-paid public sector profession in most of the frontline teaching roles. Shouldn't be that way, but it is. Will be outnumbered by their dependents, sometimes 10 to 1. So that's a real stressor on the public purse. And then the other point, if I may, is cultural. We know Catherine Burble-Singh, head of the Michaela Academy. She gets very good exam results, but she has to militantly enforce a British culture on a student body which is not often first or second generation English, Scottish, Welsh, Irish. And that's because British culture doesn't come second nature to them. They often identify with their parents' culture instead, and you get ethnic and cultural fracturing, and that can cause infighting with the student body. She needs to be very strict to do that. If you have a foreign teacher teaching students who are second and third generation immigrant, where is the ability to enforce British identity there? So it just makes that problem intergenerationally even more difficult.
OK, Chris, what do you make of all of that?
Well, as far as Catherine Burble-Singh goes, she's a Jamaican extract, so that's interesting, doesn't it? Look, we've got a teacher shortage and beggars can't be choosers. I've taught much of my career in the state sector, large comprehensives, but I also taught in the private sector. In the private sector, very common to have overseas teachers. You know, London's full of Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans, Canadians. I recruited quite a few of those. They were brilliant, young, enthusiastic, intelligent teachers. In fact, you know, on one occasion, I had a girl from Eastern Europe, from the Czech Republic. She was so good at English that I could use her to check the report writing of teachers in England to make sure they were accurate and so forth. So I think we have to choose the best. You know, just as a football manager will recruit overseas players, you know, the City of London will recruit overseas workers. The National Health Service will recruit some very good overseas workers. Children need the best, so it should be purely on ability. I don't think we should be scaremongering about driving down standards. No, the quality of overseas teachers is often a lot better than homegrown, most of whom have been infected by woke education training. So, and many of our own teachers, by the way, are going abroad. And they're working in the Gulf or in Asia and Singapore and so forth. So, yeah, it's a great thing to recruit overseas teachers. They can bring a lot of new ideas to the classroom, a lot of enthusiasm, and actually, often, they're more British than the British.
Conor?
Oh, that last comment was very telling, wasn't it? They're not more British than the British, because British is not an identity that you can sign up to like a Scouts pledge. British is a matter of heritage. So I disagree with that. All the previous points, you know, some of them are fair, but as a matter of principle, I don't think we want to be subjecting ourselves to a high level of population churn. And I would say that if the system is generating trained teachers who then want to go overseas rather than stay in Britain, the problem is with the system, and the system needs long-term fixes rather than quick fixes. I would also suggest that one of the reasons that a lot of teachers are leaving the profession, and I would know this from family members who have stuck in there and done a really difficult job, especially in special educational needs, is the high level of student disruption. It's not just mobile phones and all of the things that they can access that influence kids' ability to socialize, but a large level of family breakdown where by the time that you hit 14 to 16, 40% of kids are not living with one or even both of their biological parents is of course going to cause more disruption, more fights, more disorders like mental health issues, ADHD and the like, requiring an increasingly complex level of behavioral management by teachers. It basically gives them an extra job. If the government and society more broadly were more focused on preventing family breakup, you might give these teachers an easier time and stop making it so that more of their hours are cannibalized by the additional job atop actually educating the kids.
OK, look, we've got to leave it there, sadly, because we're out of time. But good to talk to you both. Conor and Chris McGovern, thank you very much indeed.